Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Class A. I hope it's a good Monday for everyone. As I switch some things around real quick, get myself set up. Got to switch out the books. We're back to Transcendental Magic today, and a chapter on the Kabbalah. So let me do a sound check real quick, and then we should be good to go. Test. And then we should be good to go. All right, that sounds pretty good, like it's working. So we love that. Oh, what, did you turn off? Or are you there? Oh, it's working. Okay, cool. So welcome everybody. This is Jay Baldale. And today we're back to our Class A study. So I actually need to switch these books out from our Easy Journey to Other Planets back to Transcendental Magic. There we are. Looking good. Okay. And let's get our music playing. I probably need to turn this light on over my shoulder. And then we can go ahead and get started like usual. Perfect. Wonderful. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. Chat, check. All the boxes checked. That's what we love. Okay. So, yep, I hope everybody's having a good Monday. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Or whenever you might happen across this, I just hope things are going swell for you. Let's see what the tarot wants to tell us as we get ready to crack back into our other class. All right. All right, tarot. Welcome in, everybody. Just coming in. What do we need to know for this glorious Monday? Been a pretty good one for me so far. Decent work shift, decent weather outside. And so hopefully the same can be said for you. Oh, that one kind of hopped like it wants attention. Let's go with that card right there. It's an ace. It's an ace of, it's an earth. Ace earth. That's my guess. My clairvoyant test. Let's see. Were we right? No. Air. Air again. Well, that's all right. This one's a really good one. 6 swords. Mercury in Aquarius. 6 being Tippereth on the Tree of Life. So since we're studying Kabbalah, well, I mean, all of this is Kabbalah, really, but Kabbalah, by the way, Éliphas Lévi has it put. But this particular card, science, turning all those points of the sword towards that rosy cross in the center there, represented by Tippereth on the Tree of Life. So between our other study and some of what we've been learning from this study about the science of magic and the science of spirituality, then this card right here shows the objective pretty swell, the way we turn that mind, that air. So we've got air not only with the swords, but also with the mercurial energy here. I mean, Aquarius obviously too, but there's, a pretty solid amount of air, a solid amount of the mind going on here. And the Aparachit welcome says, what kind of stream is this? Are you teaching black magic or something? Or something. I don't know about black magic. I guess that depends on what your definition of black magic is. So, yep, the way that we turn everything in towards that heart center where the holy guardian angel resides, our highest self, our whatever you want to call it. There's all kinds of names for it. That's funny. The Aparachit, just kidding. That was a good joke. I like that one. So yeah, whatever you want to call it, your higher self, your I don't know, maybe you got like a name none of us ever heard for it. Maybe you're a star seeder, and the way that you star seed is you call it your Arcturian contact or your Pleiadian contact or something like that. Maybe that's your name for the Holy Guardian Angel. Either way, towards that place of divinity that is the most harmonized. All right then. And the Aparachit says the energy of any magic is trick or like. Trick or like. Well, that's an interesting way to look at it. Okay, so yep, Transcendental Magic. Oh yeah, that picture will scare them away, that's for sure. If they don't know what this picture is talking about. And that's fine. That's its job to do. Oh, and there he is again. All this devil worship going on all the time. All right, chapter 10, Yod and K. So see that one, there's another one that doesn't match up at all. Lévi. But it says here, the number 10 is the absolute number of the Kabbalah and the key of the Sephiroth from La Clef de Grand Mystery. So, chapter 10, the Kabbalah, Malkuth Principium Phallus. All religions have preserved the remembrance of a primitive book written in hieroglyphs by the sages of the earliest epoch of the world. Simplified and vulgarized in later days, its symbols furnished letters to the art of writing, characters to the word, and to occult philosophy, its mysterious signs and panticles. Okay, and we have another note. There exists an occult and sacred alphabet which the Hebrews attributed to Enoch, the Egyptians to Thoth or Mercurius Trismegistus, the Greeks to Cadmus and Palamedes. This alphabet, which was known to the Pythagoreans, is composed of absolute ideas attached to signs and numbers, and its combinations realize the mathematics of thought. Solomon represented it by 72 names written on 36 talismans, and Eastern initiates still term it the little keys or clavicles of Solomon, from La Clef de Grand Mystery. As well as Éliphas Lévi goes on to say that these keys are described and that their use is explained in the Sefer Yetzirah, ascribed traditionally to the patriarch Abraham. But this is certainly not the case. The Kabbalistic work in question treats of 1, the 10 Sephiroth, 2, the Hebrew letters, 3, the 32 paths of wisdom, and 4, in a supplementary part, which is much later, the 50 gates of understanding. The so-called talismans of Solomon are methods of inscribing the divine names of 72 letters to which there is no reference in the Sefer Yetzirah. It should be added that this name offers no analogy, however fantastic, with tarot cards, the full number of which is 78. Okay, and the apart sheet says where I'm from, I think I know what is magic, or we called Shastra or Vidya. Where are you from? If you want to share, you don't have to share. You from India? Okay, so back to the main part of the text. This book, attributed by the Hebrews to Enoch, seventh master of the world after Adam, by the Egyptians to Hermes Trismegistus, by the Greeks to Cadmus, the mysterious builder of the holy city. This book was the symbolical summary of primitive tradition called subsequently Kabbalah or Kabbalah, meaning reception. The tradition in question rests together on the one dogma of magic. The visible is for us the proportional measure of the invisible. Now the ancients, observing that equilibrium is the universal law in physics and is consequent on the apparent opposition of two forces, argued from physical to metaphysical equilibrium and maintained that in God, that is, in the first living and active cause, there must be recognized two properties which are necessary one to another: stability and motion, necessity and liberty, rational order and volitional autonomy, justice and love, whence also severity and mercy. And these two attributes were personified, so to speak, by the Kabbalistic Jews under the names of Gibra and Chesed. Above Gibra and Chesed abides the supreme crown, the equilibrating power, principle of the world or equilibrated kingdom, which we find mentioned under the name of Malkut in the occult and Kabbalistic versicle of the Paternoster, to which we have already referred. And we've got a note for that saying, in the tree of life, Kether, the supreme crown, abides above Hokman Bina, forming with these the supernal triad, below which are Chesed and Gibra. It must be said further that the tree comprises three triangles, beneath which is Malkut. There is no circle, as Lévi suggests, except in the accidental sense that the names and titles of each sephirah are inscribed within this figure. But Gibra and Chesed, maintained in equilibrium by the crown above the kingdom below, constitute two principles which may be considered either from an abstract point of view or in their realization. In their abstract or idealized sense, they take the higher names of Chokmah, wisdom, and Binah, intelligence. And we've got another note saying, authority so great and so misunderstood at this day is founded on wisdom and intelligence. As Kether upon Chokmah and Binah, authority sanctions honor, which reposes on devotion and justice, as Tiferet on Gidula and Gibura. Honor is based on social truth, which is the alliance of order and progress, power and duty, and this truth constitutes the moral life of humanity. 1. Authority, 2. Wisdom, 3. Intelligence, 4. Devotion, 5. Justice, 6. Honor, 7. Progress, 8. Order, 9. Social truth, and 10. Humanity. Herein is the philosophical explanation and application of sacred numbers in the Kabbalah, from Fable et Symbole, symbols. Fables et symbols. How about that for your French? Why do you put words? Why do you put letters in words that we're not supposed to pronounce? Huh, French people? All right, now Parcheet says, is it necessary to believe in magic to work on us? Is it necessary? Well, that sure does make quite a bit of difference, but in my experience, it's not really. Well, it depends, because you got some people out there who are like, this magic, this witchcraft, all of this stuff is stupid. Like whoever, some of those people who talk about, oh, go ahead and curse me, all you little TikTok, witch talk type of people. And then it seems like nothing happens, but also hard to say for sure. But they might not be disclosing everything. In my experience, belief, yeah, definitely makes a pretty big impact, a pretty big difference. But I don't know that it's always necessary. And see, yep, so the Apache says, and if I don't believe on it, it won't work on me. Well, if that's what your belief is, and your belief is stronger than the person who believes their magic will work on you, then you just might be right. All right, their realization is stability and progress, that is eternity and victory, Hod and Netzach. Such, according to the Kabbalah, is the groundwork of all religions and all sciences. A triple triangle and a circle, the notion of the triad explained by the balance multiplied by itself in the domains of the ideal, then the realization of this conception informs. Now, the ancients attached the first notions of this simple and impressive theology to the very idea of numbers, and qualified the figure of the first decade after the following manner. 1. Kether, the crown, the equilibrating power. 2. Chokmah, wisdom, equilibrated in its unchangeable order by the initiative of intelligence. 3. Binah, active intelligence, equilibrated by wisdom. 4. Chesed, mercy, which is wisdom in its secondary conception, ever benevolent because it is strong. 5. Gibura, severity, necessitated by wisdom itself and by goodwill. To permit evil is to hinder good. 6. Tiferet, beauty, the luminous conception of equilibrium and forms, intermediary between the crown and the kingdom, mediating principle between creator and creation, a sublime conception of poetry and its sovereign priesthood. And so that's that sphere we saw for our tarot card today, the Six of Swords. So that's going to be representative of Tiferet. And especially in that way that we saw it represented in the kingdom of air, known as the Lord of Science, the mediating principle between creator and creation, right? All right, 7, Netzach, victory, that is eternal triumph of intelligence and justice. 8, Hod, eternity of the conquests achieved by mind over matter, active over passive, life over death. 9, Yesod, the foundation, that is the basis of all belief and all truth, otherwise the absolute in philosophy. 10, Malkut, the kingdom, meaning the universe, entire creation, the work and mirror of God, the proof of supreme reason, the formal consequence which compels us to have recourse to virtual premises, the enigma which has God for its answer, that is to say, supreme and absolute reason. These 10 primary notions attached to the 10 first characters of the primitive alphabet, signifying both principles and numbers, are called the 10 Sephiroth by the masters in Kabbalah. And we got a note saying the Kabbalah is the ciphered formula of the divine hypothesis. Mysteries are the theorems of its algebra. It is simple as 2 and 2 make 4, clear as the 4 rules of arithmetic, and obscure for the ignorant as the table of logarithms or Newton's binomial from Le Livre des Sages. Okay, and then we see this image he has here of the Yod He Vav He with these crowned heads, it looks like. And let's see, the Aparachit says, just like in our place, the goddess is worshipped for 9 days, and during those 9 days, the goddess enters someone's body and gives blessings to people. Oh, that's very cool. All right, then. I like that. All right, the sacred tetragram drawn in the following manner indicates the number, source, and correspondence of divine names. To this name of Yotheva, and we've got a note on that where it says the divine name consists of the consonants Yod, He, Vav, He, and cannot be read Yotheva. Well, there you go. Okay, so to this name of Yoteva, written by these 24 signs, crowned with a triple flower of light, must be referred to the 24 thrones of heaven and the 24 crowned elders in the apocalypse. In the Kabbalah, the occult principle is called the ancient, and this principle, multiplied and, as it were, reflected in secondary causes, creates images of itself. That is to say, so many ancients as there are diverse conceptions of its unique essence. These images, less perfect in proportion as they are removed farther from their source, project upon the darkness an ultimate reflection or glimmer, representing a horrible and deformed ancient, who is termed vulgarly the devil. Hence, an initiate has been bold enough to say, the devil is God as understood by the wicked, while another has added, in words more bizarre but no less energetic, the devil is composed of God's ruin. All right, and we've got a note on that statement saying it is affirmed by Kabbalists that the secret and true name of the devil is that of Jehovah written backward. And this is a plenary revelation for initiates in the mysteries of the tetragram. And that's what in Éliphas Lévi's tarot, how he has those hieroglyphs, that's the hieroglyph for the devil is it's Yod He Vav He upside down, and so it also looks backwards. It looks like it's turned upside down. So it's also it's read upside down / backwards, if that makes sense. You know what? I got it right here. I could probably just pull it out for us real quick. And the Parachit says, I believe that those people start believing in it so strongly that they begin to pretend that the goddess has entered them, and they end up developing that kind of personality within themselves. Well, perhaps belief is a tool or a catalyst in order for that to happen. But the way you're wording it, unless I'm mistaken, it seems a little bit like you think it's a bunch of nonsense. And that's totally understandable. But maybe I'm mistaken in the way I'm interpreting what you're saying. Where you at, old Satan? You're going to be hidden at the whole bottom of the deck? Oh, yeah, of course you are. You're the very last card. Well, that makes sense. So, yeah, you can see here how on that devil card we see Mercury on his little gown there, and then you see the Yod He Vav He. Oh, it's actually mirrored upside down. My bad, I was remembering it wrong. So, well, you would normally read Hebrew right to left, so it is backwards, but it's like, well, hang on, let's see. Okay, yeah, no, it's like it's turned. Never mind, it's not like it's mirrored. It's like it's literally turned clockwise, you could say, flipped around clockwise, because then if you turn it like that, then you see the way it would normally look. All right, well, there you go. Now you got a little visual on that. And let's go ahead and continue. Where were we? We're right here. Yeah, reading about it. The Yod He Vav He, Jehovah backwards. The order of those letters which compose this great name indicates the predominance of idea over form. Predominance of idea over form, active over passive, cause over effect. To reverse this order is to obtain a counter result. Jehovah is he who dominates nature like a magnificent horse and makes it go where he wills. But Havayah, otherwise the demon, is an unbridled horse which overthrows its rider and precipitates him into the abyss. It follows that the devil exists really for Kabbalists, but is neither a person nor a power which is distinct from the forces of nature. He is the bewrayment of or sleep of intelligence, as he is also folly and falsehood. From Le Clef de Grand Mystery, compare a statement put into the mouth of an alleged Hierophant: when you have seen God, turn about, and in the shadow which you project, in the presence of this son of intelligence, there will appear the devil, that black phantom which presents itself when you do not look towards God. Okay, so we may sum up and explain these strikingly novel definitions by remarking that in symbolism itself, the demon is an angel cast out of heaven for having sought to usurp divinity. This belongs to the allegorical language of prophets and makers of legends. Philosophically speaking, the devil is a human idea of divinity which has been surpassed and disposed of heaven by the progress of science and reason. Excuse me, dispossessed of heaven by the progress of science and reason. Among primitive Oriental peoples, Moloch, Adramelech, and Baal were personifications of the one God dishonored by barbarous attributes. The God of the Jansenists, creating hell for the majority of human beings and delighting in the eternal tortures of those he was unwilling to save, is a conception even more barbarous than that of Moloch. Hence, the God of the Jansenists is already a veritable Satan, fallen from heaven in the sight of every wise and enlightened Christian. In the multiplication of the divine names, the Kabbalists have connected them all, either with the unity of the tetragram, the figure of the triad, or the sephirotic scale of the decad. They arrange the scale of the divine names and numbers in a triangle, which may be presented in Roman characters as follows. And so, if you're on the replay, if you're live, you'll want to take a look real quick if you can, or come back, because then you'll see the way these words are all arranged here in the triangle, as he just said. The sum of all these divine names formed from the one tetragram, but outside the tetragram itself, is a basis of the Hebrew ritual and constitutes the occult force which the Kabbalistic rabbins invoke under the title of Shem HaMeforash. Oh, there he just has Shem HaMeforash. Okay. And then the part sheet says, but this doesn't happen everywhere. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone's beliefs or any godly entity. However, I once had an encounter with something like this. One day, I was very depressed and was walking past a temple, and suddenly a man appeared, smiled, and asked me, "What do you want?" I was left thinking, and then it was as if that man just disappeared. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question to ask yourself, especially when you're in those times of depression. Hopefully, you've been able to find your way out of that, because that can definitely be a tough predicament to find yourself in. But when you are in those predicaments, that is a great question to ask yourself: is what is it you want? What is it that you truly want out of life? We have now to concern ourselves with the tarot from the Kabbalistic point of view, and have already indicated the occult source of the name. This hieroglyphic book is composed of a Kabbalistic alphabet and of a wheel or circle of 4 decades, distinguished, it might even be decades, either way, distinguished by 4 symbolical and typical figures, each having for its radius a scale of 4 progressive figures which represent humanity: man, woman, youth, child, master, mistress, knight, esquire. The 22 figures of the alphabet represent, in the first place, the 13 dogmas, and secondly, the 9 beliefs authorized by that Jewish religion which is so strong and so firmly established on highest reason. Here follows the religious and Kabbalistic key of the tarot, formulated in technical verses after the mode of the ancient lawgivers. Okay, so 1, Aleph, a conscious, active cause in all we see. 2, Bet, and number proves the living unity. And then we got a footnote. Above all unities, or rather all conceptions of unity, a necessary hypothesis compels us to admit the absolute and inconceivable unity. Principle without principle, cause apart from cause. This terrible unknown has no name which can be formulated, for the tetragram itself applies only to its conventional and hieroglyphic image. But it is Aleph and Tau, Alpha and Omega in all beings. We can affirm only concerning it that it is Aleph He Yod He, or Eheye. And that's from a correspondence with Baron Spedalieri. And the Parcheet asks, is it necessary for us to live for a purpose? Well, in the beliefs and in the way I look at the world, and well, not just me, I think a lot of people, but I know you're asking me more specifically right now. I would say that I would say yes, but also I would say until you kind of figure that out, it can be hard to truly believe that. And so that's where things like faith or belief become a tool. But through things like magic or even through yoga, you can better come to understand just what that might be, because that's going to look a little bit different for everyone. And also, I get for some people, it's going to be really hard to wrap their mind around the idea. Idea on one hand, or even maybe the truth of the matter, that their whole purpose to exist is perhaps like think of a kid who gets like a horrible type of a sickness and dies at a young age in a really painful, terrible way. That hurts everybody. That hurts the community. Anybody who knew this kid, their family, their neighbors, whatever, this sweet child that was running around playing one day and then the next day was just withering away and dying. It's you're gonna have a really hard time convincing that child, that people that child knew, their family, friends, whoever, that, well, this is the path that God appointed for this individual in this life. And it's not just to say that the whole path was just to die in a sucky way. I'm sure that there were other things that this child did, and so that's where kind of the workings of God, the mystery behind creation and divinity and all that, it can be rather challenging for us to totally understand or wrap our minds around. I mean, we can do our very best, but it's a lot of times it's beyond our current scope, if that makes sense. But then again, that's more my beliefs and my outlook on things, and I could see somebody else just kind of laughing at that and being like, "What a joke! What an absolute joke!" So perhaps, though, it seems like you're maybe trying to answer some of those questions yourself, and well, you'll probably come to your own realizations and your own answers. But if anything, you'll just want to be patient in the meantime. Try to keep your mind as open as possible and your heart as open as possible. If you're saying that you're from the East, then I know reincarnation is a lot more of a common belief over there. So even if that child's current incarnation was to kind of die in this crappy way, well, then that's also where things like karma and all that come into play too, at least to my understanding. So perhaps that was the karma, at least for that particular incarnation of that particular human being. But maybe they were using that as kind of a loan, like you would from the bank or whatever. So then now the next incarnation, they've got, who knows, they've got a lot better situation set up. But it is very possible that that's just all a bunch of cope and a bunch of nonsense, and it's kind of hard to say for sure. But the practices and the studies and all of that can help to give more perspective and understanding all that. So the spiritual practices of things like yoga, things like prayer, mantra, etc. Or like from this current text, Western Occultism and Magick, Kabbalah, as it's traditionally known, Kabbalah, or most people just call it Kabbalah, Hermetic Kabbalah, gives us a map of divinity, a map of consciousness, a map of creation. All right, let's see. I was at number 3, I think. Gimel, no bound hath he who doth the whole contain. 4, Dalet, but all proceeding fills life's vast domain. 5, Hey, soul worthy worship, he, the only Lord. 6, Vow, doth his true doctrine to clean hearts accord. 7, Zion, but since faith's works a single pontiff need. 8, Het, one law have we, and at one altar plead. 9, Tet, eternal God, for I their base upholds. 10, Yod, heaven and man's day alike his rule enfolds. 11, Kaf, in mercy rich, in retribution strong. 12, Lamed, his people's king he will appraise ere long. 13, Mem, the tomb gives entrance to the promised land. Death only ends, life's vistas still expand. These doctrines sacred, pure and steadfast shine, and thus we close our numbers scale divine. Okay, 14, Noon, good angels all things temper and assuage. 15, Samek, while evil spirits burst with wrath and rage. 16, Oyen, God doth the lightning rule, the flames subdue. 17, Pei, his word controls both Vesper and her due. 18, Zadi, he makes the moon our watchman through the night. 19, Kuf, and by his sun renews the world in light. 20, Resh, when dust to dust returns, his breath can call. And then he's got 20 or 21, Sheen, life from the tomb, which is the fate of all. And then 21 or 22 for Tau. His crown illuminates the mercy seat and glorifies the cherubs at his feet. All right. By the help of this purely dogmatic explanation, we shall already understand the Kabbalistic alphabet of the tarot. Thus, figure 1, entitled The Juggler, represents the active principle in the economy of divine and human autotelia. Figure 2, vulgarly called Pope Joan, who knew that High Priestess was also known as Pope Joan, represents dogmatic unity based upon numbers and is the personification of the Kabbalah or the Gnosis. Figure 3 represents divine spirituality under the emblem of a winged woman, holding in one hand the apocalyptic eagle and in the other the world suspended from the end of her scepter. The other emblems are equally clear and can be explained as easily as the first. Turning now to the 4 suits, namely clubs, cups, swords, and circles, or pentacles, commonly called deniers, or maybe it's denier, man, French, denier. All these are hieroglyphics of the tetragram. Thus, the club is the Egyptian phallus or the Hebrew yod. The cup is the katis or primitive hay. The sword is the conjunction of both, or the lingam, represented in Hebrew, preceding the captivity by vow, while the circle or pentacle image of the world is the hey final of the divine name. Now let us take a tarot and combine all its emblems one by one into the wheel or rota of William Postel. Let us group the four aces, the four twos, and so on together. We shall then have 10 packs of cards giving the hieroglyphic interpretation of the triangle of divine names on the scale of the denary as previously tabulated. By referring each number to its corresponding sephirah, we may then read them off as follows. Okay. And the Aparachit says the purpose of rituals is to calm your mind and help you focus. A lot of them, yeah. I wouldn't say that that's the sole purpose, but I would say that that certainly is an effect that quite a few of them have, especially things like meditation, which is pretty. You can look at that as a ritual, definitely. And one true goddess, yo, happy Monday. I hope you're having a great day. Great to see you. All right. So he says we may then read them off as follows. Yod He Vav He, four signs present the name of every name. One, Kether, the four aces, four brilliant beams adorn his crown of flame. Two, Hokmah, the four twos, four rivers ever from his wisdom flow. Three, Binah, the four threes, four proofs of his intelligence we know. Four, Chesed, the four fours, four benefactions from his mercy come. Five, Giburah, the four fives, four times four sins avenged, his justice sum. And Josue Yara, what's up? Good to see you again. I hope you're having a great day too. Six, Tipperet, the four sixes, four rays unclouded make his beauty known. Okay. So in that card we saw today again, which was going to be one of the sixes, the six of swords, air. So the unclouded rays of air, making God's beauty known through the mind, through the thoughts. And the Aparchit says spiritual awareness gives you control over how you see the world. Now that, yeah, I would agree with that for sure. It definitely has that effect. And that's why I think a lot of people pursue some type of spiritual understanding, whether it's in an organized group or religion, or whether it's just on their own volition. All right, 7, Netzach, the four sevens, four times his conquest shall in song be shown. 8, Hod, the four eights, four times he triumphs on the timeless plain. 9, Yesod, the four nines, foundations for his great white throne maintain. 10, Malkut, the four tens, one fourfold kingdom owns his endless sway, as from his crown there streams a fourfold ray. Well, that's given some little bit different ways of looking at the pips of the tarot, the small cards, as well as the aces and court cards, but you can just call those pips as well. By this simple arrangement, the Kabbalistic meaning of each card is exhibited. For example, the five of clubs signifies rigorously Gibra of Yod, that is, the justice of the Creator or the wrath of man. The seven of cups signifies the victory of mercy or the triumph of woman. The eight of swords signifies conflict or eternal equilibrium, and so of the others. And then we've got a note saying, in one of his later reveries, Lévi pretends that the apocalypse appears to have been devised according to the numbers, symbols, and hieroglyphical figures of the tarot. There, in fact, we find scepters, chalices, swords, and crowns disposed by determined numbers and corresponding to each other by means of the denary and sacred septenary. So it's going to be talking about the book of the apocalypse, the book of Revelations. We find also the four kings of the four quarters of the world and the four horsemen which figure in our ordinary cards. We find the winged woman and also the Logos in kingly garments, afterwards in pontifical vestments with several diadems on his tiara. Finally, the apocalyptic key, which is the vision of heaven, is identical with number 21 of the tarot, exhibiting a throne surrounded by a double rainbow, and at the four corners of this crown, the four sacramental animals of the Kabbalah. These coincidences are very curious, at least, and give much food for thought from La Clef de Grand Mystery. The alleged analogies are utterly fantastic throughout, or more correctly, do not exist. There is no need to waste space, but scepters do not appear in the Apocalypse, and the 21st chapter of the text has not one symbol corresponding to the tarot card, which is called the World, and is here misdescribed utterly. Oh, Lévi. And then the Aparcheet says they're symbols of universal forces. Absolutely. We can thus understand how the ancient pontiffs proceeded to make the oracle speak. The chance dealing of the laminae produced invariably a fresh Kabbalistic meaning, exactly true in its combinations, which alone were fortuitous. And seeing that the faith of the ancients attributed nothing to chance, they read the answers of providence in the oracles of the tarot, which were called Tiferet or Teraphim by the Hebrews. As the erudite Kabbalist Gaffarel, one of the magicians employed by Cardinal Richelieu, was the first to perceive. And then a note on that saying, Gaffarel was a man of learning, as his Abdita Divinae Kabbalae Mysteria and unheard of curiosities concerning talismanic magic prove abundantly. He was the librarian of Cardinal Richelieu, and I doubt very much whether he was employed in any other sense by the great prelate. Providence is said to have removed him, circa 1681, on the eve of a great folly, the preparation of a formidable work upon caverns, hollow places, holes in the earth, and in the human body. It should be added that there is no reference to tarot cards in the writings of Gaffarel. As to the court cards, a final couplet will suffice to explain them. King, queen, knight, esquire, the married pair, the youth, the child, the race. Thy path by these to unity retrace. At the end of the ritual, we shall provide further details together with full documents concerning the marvelous book of the tarot, of all books, the most primitive, the key of prophecies and dogmas, in a word, the inspiration of inspired works, a fact which has remained unperceived not only by the science of Court de Gabelin, but by the extraordinary intuitions of Etiela or Aliette. The 10 Sephiroth and the 22 tarots form what the Kabbalists term the 32 paths of absolute science. With regard to particular sciences, they distinguish them into 50 chapters, which they call the 50 gates. Among Orientals, the word gate signifies government or authority. The rabbins also divided the Kabbalah into Bereshit, or universal Genesis, and Merkavah, or the chariot of Ezekiel. Then, by means of a dual interpretation of the Kabbalistic alphabets, they formed two sciences called Gematria and Timura, and so composed the notary art, which is fundamentally the complete science of the tarot, signs and their complex and varied application to the divination of all secrets, whether of philosophy, nature, or the future itself. We shall recur to this work in the 20th chapter of our ritual. Okay. And the Aparachit says that each gate represents a deeper level of wisdom. Are you talking about as far as the 50 gates of understanding go? Okay, and if I remember right, yep, all right. So that's the end of the doctrine for the Kabbalah. And so now we'll go ahead and move on to the ritual, which this one's pretty short compared to that one we were just on. All right. Chapter 10, the key of occultism. Let us now examine the question of pentacles. For all magical virtue is there, since the secret of force is in the intelligence which directs. We have given the symbol and interpretation of the Pentacles of Pythagoras and Ezekiel, so that we have no need to recur to these. We shall prove in a later chapter that all the instruments of Hebrew worship were Pentacles, and the first and final word of the Bible was graven by Moses in gold and in brass on the tabernacle and on all its accessories. But each magus can and should have his individual pantacle, for understood accurately, a pantacle is the perfect summary of a mind. Hence, we find in the magical calendars of Tycho Brahe and Duchenteau the pentacles of Adam, Job, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and of all the other great prophets who have been, each in his turn, the kings of the Kabbalah and the grand rabbins of science. The pantacle, being a complete and perfect synthesis expressed by a single sign, serves to focus all intellectual force into a glance, a recollection, a touch. It is, so to speak, a starting point for the efficient projection of will. Nigromancers and goetic magicians traced their infernal pentacles on the skin of the victims they immolated. The sacrificial ceremonies, the manner of skinning the kid, then of salting, drying, and bleaching the skin, are given in a number of clavicles and grimoires. Some Hebrew Kabbalists fell into similar follies, forgetting the anathemas pronounced in the Bible against those who sacrifice on high places or in the caverns of the earth. All spilling of blood operated ceremonially is abominable and impious, and since the death of Adon Hiram, the Society of True Adepts has a horror of blood. Ecclesia abhorret a sanguine. And the apart sheet says, yeah, it's about the stronger and clearer you're thinking, the better control you have. Absolutely. The initiatory symbolism of pentacles adopted throughout the East is the key of all ancient and modern mythologies. Apart from knowledge of the hieroglyphic alphabet, one would be lost among the obscurities of the Vedas, the Zenda Vesta, and the Bible. The tree which brings forth good and evil, the source of the four rivers, one of which waters the land of gold, that is, of light, and another flows through Ethiopia, or the kingdom of darkness. The magnetic serpent who seduces the woman, and the woman who seduces the man, thus making known the law of attraction. Subsequently, the cherub or sphinx placed at the gate of the Edenic sanctuary with the fiery sword of the guardians of the symbol. And a note saying, according to Les Mysteries de la Kabbale, the center of Eden, signifying presumably the tree of life which stood in the midst of the garden, is the sole source of the sole principle which puts forth all forms of nature. And then the part sheet says, I think symbols act like a hidden language behind these traditions. Oh, yeah, definitely. Without a doubt. Okay, then regeneration by labor and propagation by sorrow, which is the law of initiations and ordeals. The division of Cain and Abel, which is the same symbol as the strife of Anteros and Eros. The ark borne upon the waters of the deluge, like the coffer of Osiris, the black raven which does not return, and the white dove which does, a new setting forth of the dogma of antagonism and balance. All these magnificent Kabbalistic allegories of Genesis, which, taken literally and accepted as actual histories, merit even more derision and contempt than Voltaire heaped upon them, become luminous for the initiate, who still hails with enthusiasm the love and perpetuity of true doctrine and the universality of initiation identical in all sanctuaries of the world. The five books of Moses, the prophecy of Ezekiel, and the apocalypse of St. John are the three Kabbalistic keys of the whole biblical edifice. The sphinxes of Ezekiel are identical with those of the sanctuary and the ark, being a fourfold reproduction of the Egyptian tetrad. The wheels revolving in one another are the harmonious spheres of Pythagoras. The new temple, the plan of which is given according to the exact Kabbalistic measures, is the type of the labors of primitive masonry. St. John in his Apocalypse reproduces the same images and the same numbers and reconstructs the Edenic world ideally in the New Jerusalem. But at the source of the four rivers, the solar lamb replaces the mysterious tree. Initiation by toil and blood has been accomplished, and there is no more temple, because the light of truth is diffused universally, and the world has become the temple of justice. This splendid final vision of the Holy Scriptures, this divine utopia, which the Church has referred with good reason for its realization to a better life, has been the pitfall of all ancient arch heretics and of many modern idealists. The simultaneous emancipation and absolute equality of all men involve the arrest of progress and consequently of life. In a world where all are equal, there could no longer be infants or the aged. Birth and death could not be therefore admitted. This is sufficient to demonstrate that the New Jerusalem is no more of this world than the primeval paradise, wherein there was no knowledge of good or evil, of liberty, of generation, or of death. The cycle of our religious symbolism begins and ends, therefore, in eternity. I didn't highlight that one. The cycle of our religious symbolism begins and ends, therefore, in eternity. And the Aparachit says, Pentacles help decode these meanings. It represents duality, good versus evil, light versus darkness. It can be masculine and feminine energies interact and influence each other. Dupuy and Volney lavished their great erudition to discover this relative identity of all symbols and arrived at the negation of every religion. We attain by the same path to an affirmation diametrically opposed. We recognize with admiration that there have never been any false religions in the civilized world, that the divine light, the splendor of the supreme reason of the Logos, of that word which enlightens every man coming into the world, has been no more wanting to the children of Zoroaster than to the faithful sheep of St. Peter. That the permanent, the one, the universal revelation is written in visible nature, explained in reason, and completed by the wise analogies of faith. That there is finally but one true religion, having one doctrine and one legitimate belief, even as there is but one God, one reason, and one universe. That revelation is obscure for no one, since the whole world understands more or less both truth and justice, and since all that is possible can only exist analogically to all that is. Being is being, eheye, ashera eheye. The apparently bizarre figures represented by the Apocalypse of St. John are hieroglyphics, like those of all Oriental mythologies, and can be comprised in a series of pantacles. The initiator, clothed in white, standing between 7 golden candlesticks and holding 7 stars in his hand, represents the unique doctrine of Hermes and the universal analogies of the light. The woman clothed with the sun and crowned with 12 stars is the celestial Isis, or the Gnosis. The serpent of material life seeks to devour her child, but she takes unto herself the wings of the eagle and flies away into the desert. A protestation of the prophetic spirit against the materialism of official religion. The mighty angel with the face of a sun, a rainbow for nimbus, and a cloud for vestment, having pillars of fire for his legs, and setting one foot upon the earth and another on the sea, is truly a Kabbalistic pantheon. His feet represent the equilibrium of Bria, or the world of forms. Okay, and then we've got a note. In this and what follows, the arrangement of the tree of life in Kabbalism passes into utter confusion. Lévi must have intended to say that the feet of the symbolical angel represent Malkuth, which is actually the world of external forms. Bria would then represent the heart. Compare the tree of life in its correspondence to the human figure given by Athanasius Kircher in Oedipus Egypticus. Yeah, Malkuth, or Asaya. And the Aparachit says, I'm sorry if any of my words hurt you. I sincerely apologize from my heart. I'll take your leave now, as it's time for me to sleep. And yes, I also ask you, what do you want? Goodbye. Well, thank you. No, you're fine. You don't, not at all. You're totally good. I appreciate your contribution to the stream today. And I hope to see you again. Have a good rest, and thank you. I need to, I probably do need to ask myself that a little more often, so I appreciate you. Okay, so Lévi, though, says, his feet represent the equilibrium of Briah, or the world of forms. His legs are the two pillars of the Masonic temple, Yakin and Boaz. His body, veiled by clouds, from which issues a hand holding a book, is the sphere of Yetzirah, or initiatory ordeals. His solar head, crowned with the radiant septenary, is the world of Atziluth, or perfect revelation. And we can only express our astonishment that Hebrew Kabbalists have not recognized and explained this symbolism, which so closely and inseparably connects the highest mysteries of Christianity with the secret but invariable doctrine of all the masters in Israel. The beast with seven heads in the symbolism of St. John is the material and antagonistic negation of the luminous septenary. The Babylonian harlot corresponds after the same manner to the woman clothed with the sun. The four horsemen are analogous to the four allegorical living creatures. The seven angels, with their seven trumpets, seven cups, and seven swords, characterize the absolute of the struggle of good against evil by speech, by religious association, and by force. Thus are the seven seals of the occult book opened successively, and universal initiation is accomplished. The commentators who have sought anything else in this book of the transcendent Kabbalah have lost their time and their trouble, only to render themselves ridiculous. To discover Napoleon in the angel Apollyon, Luther in the star which falls from heaven, Voltaire or Rousseau in the grasshoppers armed like warriors is merely high fantasy. It is the same with all the violence done to the names of celebrated persons so as to make them numerically equivalent to that fatal number 666, which we have already explained sufficiently. When we think that men like Bossuet and Newton amused themselves with such chimeras, we can understand that humanity is not so acute in its genius as might be supposed from the bearing of its vices. All right. 6 days in. What's up? Great to see you. And yep, six. I know it, huh? 666. Oh no, got us shaking in our boots. Okay. Well, that does it for the chapter 10, the chapter on Kabbalah. 6 days in, there was a little something in here for you if you didn't catch the whole stream back in the doctrine section based on the little bit of chit chatting we've been doing. So you might want to check that out when you have a minute. And then tomorrow, we'll hop back into this for chapter 11, which is going to talk about the chain of being. So that ought to be real swell and real fun. And the Aparachi, yeah, I appreciate your contributions today very much. So thank you for stopping by. 6 days in, always great to see you. One True Goddess, always great to see you. And everybody else, always great to see you, even on the replays. I appreciate you all so very much. I love you all so very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you for our next class. This has been Jay Balde, and this has been Éliphas Lévi's Transcendental Magic. Bye-bye.